Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at an extremely powerful Pokemon that you can use in the Spring Cup, and that is going to be Flash Cannon FERROTHORN. Part of what makes FERROTHORN incredibly good in the Spring Cup meta is that it is a terrific answer to the two best save switches in the meta, which are going to be Tentacruel and Triple Legacy Seeking. As you're going to see in this video, I do try out two different teams. I would definitely recommend using the second team if you want to try out FERROTHORN. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out FERROTHORN in action in the Spring Cup. Hopping to the first match, picking up a very nice lead, Shadow Mawile into Trevenant. Opponent save switches into Tentacruel, and now it's time for FERROTHORN to shine. FERROTHORN is going to single resist all of the poison damage from Tentacruel here, so even though they lower my defense by 2 stages with the Acid Spray, Tentacruel is still in a very comfortable spot. I go for the Power Whip, that's going to do quite a lot of neutral damage, and I'm going to look to massively overfarm here. My opponent makes it to a second move, I'm going to let this through. My opponent is going to fire off the Scald, that does get the Tentacruel low, but I'm going to farm up to 100 energy here. Fire off Power Whip is going to be no shielded. My opponent is going to send in the Trevenant not going to make the farm down before I'm able to get to the Flash Cannon. Flash Cannon connects, in comes Mawile, opponent sees the writing on the wall, and concedes the match. Great lead again in the next match, Shadow Mawile into Shadow Abomasnow. My opponent save switches into Triple Legacy Seeking, and again, it is time for FERROTHORN to prove its value. They're going to be firing off a move here. Whether they go for the Icy Wind or the Drill Run, both are going to hit for neutral. They go for the Icy Wind, and honestly, that's better for me, because that means this Power Whip is not going to KO, and they're going to make it to a second move. Because ideally, I would like to leave this matchup on low HP, but with a lot of energy. This way, the Abomasnow is not going to get a lot of farm, but I can leave with a Flash Cannon. This is going to be a debuffed Flash Cannon, but it's still just going to do so much damage. Flash Cannon nearly KOs, in the back is Lantern, and that's a good game. We see Grass on the lead again in the next match, Shadow Mawile into Roserade. My opponent is going to save switch into another Seeking, and we've seen this story before. We can comfortably tank whatever they throw. They're going to fire off the Icy Wind, and now I can return fire with the Power Whip. This Power Whip is going to be debuffed here, so it's not going to be enough to KO. Seeking farming up here. Seeking actually is not able to make it to a move. My opponent sends in the Roserade, and they're running Poison Jab on the Roserade. Flash Cannon is going to land and deal a significant amount of damage. I'm farming up, not going to make it to another move, as Roserade is going to go for the Fire-type Weather Ball. That's going to KO. I send in the Mawile, it's another Lantern, and as you can see, this cup does have a little bit of rock, paper, scissors element to it. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, Shadow Mawile into Tentacruel. I'm going to throw one fast move save switch into FERROTHORN, and my opponent responds with a Tropius. Honestly, FERROTHORN feels to be a pretty decent save switch in this meta, because it basically only has one hard counter, that being Fire Fang Mawile, so if your opponent doesn't have Mawile, honestly, it feels like it has some pretty nice play. My opponent sends in the Air Slash Tropius. They're able to hit for neutral, but so am I with the Flash Cannon. Flash Cannon nearly able to KO the Tropius. Tropius going to return fire with another Aerial Ace here. That's not going to be enough to KO. FERROTHORN Bullet Seeds down the Tropius and win switch. Unfortunately, I do not have a move loaded here, so whatever they send in, which is the Trevenant, is not going to be hit with a move. I bring in Mawile, they send in Tentacruel, and now in comes Venusaur. Now, this is a matchup where if it's the 0 shield or the 1 shield, Venusaur can do quite well, but since it's the 2 shield, unfortunately, I actually do not win this matchup. And I shielded the first Acid Spray. I definitely shouldn't have done that. I should have just let it go and shielded the second, but as you're going to see, whether you shield the first or the second, unfortunately, you do lose the 2 shield here. I am going to be able to reach another Frenzy Plant here. This is going to be grabbing the final shield, and now it's all up to Shadow Mawile. I'm going to need to perfectly overfarm in this matchup. I know their Trevenant only has 1 Shadow Claw worth of energy, so I am going to overfarm until I am 6 Fire Fangs away from the next Iron Head. That should bring it down to a CMP tie here. Iron Head is going to KO. In comes the Trevenant. It's a race. Mawile gets the Iron Head, but loses CMP. I thought Mawile won CMP. I am mistaken, and we lose the match. We see same leads in the next match, Shadow Mawile into Tentacruel, and an opportunity for redemption. As before, I throw one fast move, I save switch into my Ferrothorn, and my opponent is going to respond with a Galarian Weezing. Weezing, of course, does have access to Overheat. I will respect it with a shield, and my opponent full sends the Overheat. I'm going to farm up to 100 and bait with the Power Whip. Power Whip is going to get a shield. That is big. And now I'm going straight for the Flash Cannon here. Are they willing to double shield? They are not. Down goes Weezing, and Ferrothorn takes switch. My opponent in the back, they have their own Ferrothorn, and that Ferrothorn is going to get absolutely crushed by Shadow Mawile in the endgame. I'm able to land a Flash Cannon. Flash Cannon does deal some pretty okay damage for a resisted move. My opponent lands a Flash Cannon of their own as well. I'm going to farm up. I'm going for Flash Cannon number 2 here. This is non-lethal, but it will get them into a range where hopefully 1 or 2 Fire Fangs is going to be enough to KO. They're going to be firing off another move. Again, I'm going to let this through. It's another Flash Cannon. I send in the Mawile. They send in the Tentacruel. And now we get to see the Venusaur versus Tentacruel matchup, but now it's in the one shield. They go for the Acid Spray there. I'm going to let that through. And now I just have to farm up and make it to the back-to-back Frenzy Plants here. So I am going to be committing the shield on Acid Spray number 2. And as you're going to see, Venusaur is going to make it to the back-to-back Frenzy Plants. First Frenzy gets the shield. Second Frenzy, there are no shields remaining for the opponent. Frenzy Plant gets them low. They leave on 1 HP without a charge move. And we get the win. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Shadow Mawile into Trevenant. Opponent save switches into triple Legacy Seeking, and we have seen this play out before. Opponent gonna fire off a charge move. I'm not gonna be shielding a thing here. They go for the Drill Run here, so importantly, my attack is not lowered. Here I am gonna try and go for an undercharge because I do want to actually take some additional damage, but it KOs anyway, and that is legitimately a problem. My opponent would make it to a Shadow Ball unless I go for the Flash Cannon on alignment, so I do give them an entire Shadow Claw for free, but my rationale there was I wanted to get this damage. But my opponent is going to be able to farm up to a Seed Bomb plus a Shadow Ball. They can Seed Bomb here, it is going to be enough to KO, and they leave with the Shadow Ball loaded for the Mawile. So I'm going to put my full faith into Venusaur here. Shadow Ball does so much damage, and it's Tentacruel in the back. If it's Acid Spray, I lose. And it is Acid Spray. And this, unfortunately, was a bit of a wake-up call to the fact that Ferrothorn is incredibly good, but I think there's a better team out there than the one that I'm running for Ferrothorn. So I decided to make a bit of an adjustment, and the remaining few battles in the video that you're going to see are with the adjusted team. And honestly, I was pretty happy with how the adjusted team performed. So as you're going to see here, there's not a whole lot more I can do, and I resigned the match. Hopping to the first match with the adjusted team leading Tentacruel into Abomasnow. Opponent is going to save switch into Trevenant, and I'm going to stay in here with the Tentacruel and fire off the Acid Spray. Acid Spray, probably not going to be shielded here, but it will get a very important debuff. This is going to allow me to shield once, fully farm down, and leave with some energy to threaten the Abomasnow when it makes a reappearance. My opponent Seed Bomb baited, but they're not going to be able to make it to the Shadow Ball. Back in comes the Abomasnow, and I'm going for the Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball will hit for some significant neutral damage. Opponent is going to commit the shield. Trevenant able to make another Shadow Ball as the opponent looks to try and farm down. This Shadow Ball is going to get the second shield, so opponent putting all of their cards and their faith into the Abomasnow. I am going to be sending back in the Tentacruel here. My opponent is forced to go for an Energy Ball, and you know what? Since they're double shielding the Abomasnow, I'm going to protect the Tentacruel. Tentacruel farming up here, going for the Acid Spray, and my opponent catches onto their own Tenta. Very nice catch by my opponent, but bad news for my opponent is I have a very good counter for the Tenta, so I'm going to rebank the Acid Spray and send in Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn will be able to absorb whatever Tentacruel throws, and my goal now is just to leave this matchup with as much energy as possible. So I'm just going to farm all the way up to 100 energy here. Scald is going to land. I do get my attack debuffed, but the good thing is that's not going to affect the outcome of this match. I can make it to 100 energy. Power Whip gets the KO. In comes Abomasnow, and even though this Power Whip is resisted, the Abomasnow is just too low. Power Whip KOs, and that's game over. We've got mirror leads in the next match, Tentacruel versus Tentacruel. I'm going to stay in this matchup to start, and I'm going to build up energy, farming up to the Scald, switch, and a catch, catching their charge move onto Ferrothorn. This way, I waste their energy while saving mine. My opponent makes a really nice play here. They're actually going to rebank energy on the Tentacruel, and now they're going to send in their Trevenant. So honestly, this is looking like it might be a mirror team. I'm going to fire off the Flash Cannon, able to connect, and my opponent is going to fire off a charge move. I'm debuffed. I'm not going to be shielding here. They do full send the Shadow Ball, and now I can send in my Tentacruel, farm down, and get a big energy lead for when they bring back in their own Tenta. But they actually don't. My opponent brings in Ferrothorn as their final Pokemon, so they are running a mirror team. I'm going to bring in Trevenant right away. They're still switch locked, and they're 2 stages debuffed, so these Shadow Claws are absolutely tearing through the Ferro. Ferro is going to bait with a Power Whip, and now back in comes the Tentacruel. They did bank energy from earlier. I'm going to be firing off the Seed Bomb here. Seed Bomb gets the shield. I'm able to make it to the Shadow Ball, and I'm going to bait with the Seed Bomb again. Seed Bomb gets the shield. That is big. They're going to return fire with a charge move. I commit the shield. I get baited with an Acid Spray. And to add insult to injury, I'm going to get outpaced here. They make it to a second. And the second Acid Spray does a lot more than the first would have. I'm now pretty low on health. I need any advantage I can get. Seed Bomb, unfortunately, not going to be enough to KO. And I can't farm down. So I'm forced to switch into the Tentacruel. Back out comes the Ferrothorn. I'm going to be firing off the Acid Spray. That is going to connect. My opponent farming up energy, and they're going to be firing off a move. I'm hopeful that I can tank a Power Whip here, but they're running Thunder. I definitely cannot take that. In comes the Trevenant. Trevenant able to win CMP over the Ferrothorn. The question is, how low is that Tentacruel? It's going to be a race of fast moves, and we lose a heartbreaking game. Picking up an interesting lead in the next match, Tentacruel into Walrein. Walrein, of course, does have access to Earthquake, which would hit for super effective damage, so even though their fast moves don't do a lot, I will probably end up shielding the first move that they throw. I go for the Acid Spray. They know it's just an Acid Spray, so they are going to let that through. This is easily enough for the Earthquake. I will respect it with a shield, and it ends up being a good shield. They do full send the Quake. Opponent is going to send in their own Trevenant. I'm going to go for the Acid Spray, and then I can pretty safely one-shield farm down with my own Trevenant. I will be down 0 shields to 2, but the good news is I'm going to have energy stored on the Trevenant, so if they bring back in the Walrein, I can hopefully get shields back here. My opponent is going to send back in the Walrein. I'm going to be firing off the Seed Bomb here. Seed Bomb is going to get the shield from the Walrein. Walrein continues to farm, and I make another Seed Bomb. This is big. Opponent gives up the final shield, so we are all shields down in this matchup. They're going to be able to KO with the Icicle Spear. I'm now going to send in the Ferrothorn to get ahead on energy, and it's a Lantern in the back. Let's go. And this is just very unfortunate for the Lantern, as Ferrothorn just absolutely crushes in this matchup. There's just nothing really that Lantern can do here. Lantern goes for the Thunder. I'm now going to send in Tentacruel. Tentacruel is going to farm down before they reach another Thunder. This is just going to be the Surf, so we tank the Surf just fine. We should be able to farm down the Walrein here. I believe this should only be the Spear, and it is, and that's game over. Hopping into the final match, picking up a dominant lead, Tentacruel into Alolan Ninetales. And Ninetales is staying in, so whatever they have in the back has got to be pretty weak to Tentacruel. I'm going to tank whatever they throw here. They go for the Weather Ball. My opponent is now going to send in Trevenant. I'm going to fire off the Acid Spray, and then I'm going to bring in the Mirror here. So I'm going to bring in my own Trevenant, go for the Seed Bomb because I'm pretty attack weighted, so I usually win CMP, but unfortunately, in this situation, I actually do not win CMP. So I am going to give up Switch, but the thing I have going for me is I have 2 pretty decent checks to the Ninetales remaining. I'm just going to get energy here on my Tentacruel. In the back, they have a Lantern. I'm going to fire off the Acid Spray here. And the nice thing is, I can honestly output quite a lot of damage onto this Lantern just by virtue of Poison Jab and Acid Spray. Opponent catches an Acid Spray onto their Alolan Ninetales, and that's just going to allow me to farm down. They're going to be going for the Weather Ball here. I believe I should barely be able to tank this. Now I can send in the Ferrothorn, and my opponent just stops attacking. At this point, I'm pretty sure they do recognize that it is going to be game over. Back in comes the Lantern. Lantern is going to fire off a charge move here into the Ferrothorn. They go for the Surf, and Ferrothorn is just too tanky in this moment. Plus, it has the type resistance. Power Whip is going to get the shield. My opponent still trying to play it out. They're going for another move here with the Lantern. Lantern is going to fire off a Thunder, and Thunder is just not quite going to cut it, unfortunately. Going for another Power Whip here. Power Whip is going to get the KO, and that is a good game. All in all, Flash Cannon Ferrothorn is an incredibly powerful pick for the Spring Cup meta. As I mentioned, as of day one at least, the two most popular save switches that I was seeing in the meta were Tentacruel and the Triple Legacy Sea King, and Ferrothorn just absolutely shuts down both of them. So if you are looking to team build and potentially make a push to a higher rank in this week, definitely consider Ferrothorn, as it is a powerhouse. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.